A big update and a significant one coming in. India and the United Kingdom have achieved a historic milestone, successfully concluding a landmark free trade agreement and double taxation convention. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, after a conversation with his UK counterpart Keir Starmer, said the agreements will deepen the India-UK strategic partnership, boosting trade, investment, job creation and innovation across both economies. The Prime Minister also saying that he looks forward to welcoming the UK Prime Minister to India soon. My colleague Rishabh now joining me with more details. Rishabh, a very, very significant and important announcement that's coming in right now. What are the biggest wins for India and UK in this agreement? This has been a long time coming. We're looking at almost 3 years of dialogue back and forth.
Right, Sanjana, we have a formal announcement of the conclusion of all the negotiations with regards to the India-UK free trade agreement coming to a conclusion. Prime Minister Modi just announced it. This comes very recently on the heels of the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal visiting London. In fact, he was just on May 2nd is when he returned to India from a three-city tour of Europe. He visited London, Oslo, Brussels, and then went back to London, which is when we initially expected this conclusion to be announced, but this has been announced now formally. What we're seeing is that this is following the UK's exit from the European Union. These negotiations started in January 2022. So you're right, after 3 years of constant back and forth, India and the UK have finally been able to reach some sort of a consensus here in terms of a free trade agreement. Now remember, this free trade agreement with the UK was built of 3 parts. The first one being the FTA, the second one being the double convention, the double contribution convention agreement, which is also known as a social security agreement, and the third one being a bilateral investment treaty. Now, while 2 of them have now been announced, we don't have any clarity on whether the bilateral investment treaty, which was also part of this, whether that has also been agreed upon or not. This will have implications for the auto sector. This will have implications for the whiskey sector, for alcoholic beverages as well, apart from education, apart from and also space defense. These are some sectors that will stand to benefit from this.
You said something very significant, implications in the auto sector, on alcoholic beverages, education. Could you just stress on that a little bit? And how does this particular agreement, how is this different from any of the other agreements that we have seen in the past between India and other countries?
Right, Sanjana, this is very important because India is already in trade talks with the US. It is in trade talks with the European Union as well as FTA, which is a part, which is sort of a subset of the European Union. What we've seen over these 3 years since the negotiation started was that there could be tariff reductions that we'll see on Scotch whiskey. That is something that comes from Scotland, which is part of the UK. We're seeing car exports to India might also see tariff reductions as part of this FTA. We're also seeing that the finance ministry, which is involved in the BIT, the bilateral investment treaty, that is something that could also be a part of this FTA, though we don't have clarity on that because that is not what the Prime Minister's tweet has mentioned so far. There's also a very big chatter on what sort of impact this will have on the British financial services sector. Maybe a few banks entering India is something, maybe a few fintechs that play a major role in the UK could also be coming to India, given the sort of plethora of digital connectivity, the digital payments infrastructure that India has built over the years. So these are a few key sectors that we will see a positive impact to.
Right, Rishabh, if you could actually take us through, what were the kind of challenges? Were there any last-minute hurdles that we saw before finalizing the agreement? Let's remember, as we have been saying, it has taken 3 years with back-and-forth negotiations, with finalizing, demands and perhaps something that both the countries wanted to see. We also saw the introduction of Donald Trump coming in, his regime, the introduction of US tariffs. How has that impacted this agreement, and what were the last-minute hurdles?
Right, Sanjana. We actually reported a few days back that there might be three things that might be the hurdles between an India-UK FTA getting concluded. The first one was the sunset clause that is part of the bilateral investment treaty. Again, that is something that we don't know if that's been resolved yet or not. The other one was the UK's carbon tax. That is something that has bothered India and Indian companies for a very long time. This with European Union's CBAM as well as the UK's carbon tax. So there has been some sort of an agreement achieved between India and the UK. We'll have more details once there's a final document and more statements coming in from India's Commerce Ministry on that. And the third sort of hurdle that was there was regarding data localization, whether when British companies come to India, where they'll have to store their data, whether it'll be India, because India has always pushed for data localization. If there are companies that are based outside of India, but they take Indian data and they store it elsewhere, that is something that the government has had apprehensions towards. So hopefully these three hurdles have now been resolved, and that is something we will continue to track as we have more and more details coming in on this historic free trade agreement.
Shab, tell us, could this deal set a precedent for future trade agreements between India and other nations? Let's remember, this is also coming in at a time that India is in the midst of discussions with the United States. We saw the Commerce Minister actually come out and say that those discussions are going really well, but curious to understand whether it actually sets a precedent.
Right, exactly, Sanjana. What this deal holds beyond just trade is possibly a template for how India's other active trade talks might pan out. If India agrees to certain tariff reductions with the UK, the US will now have a ground to ask for the same, if not more. Similarly, the same goes for the EU as well as FTA. Apart from that, India is already in active negotiations with New Zealand for a free trade agreement. So all these four other pending trade talks could actually see an acceleration because some sort of a precedent, some sort of a template has now been set in the form of India rather swiftly finishing these FTA negotiations.
Okay, and Rishabh, what are the potential risks now that we can see for Indian manufacturers due to the nature or the change now that we'll see in the tariffs?
Right. In the sectors I mentioned for the auto, if there could be certain tariff reductions that are coming in on car imports to India, there might be some sort of a threat initially. I think that is a big one. In terms of alcoholic beverages coming in, especially in Scotch whisky, there could be renewed competition for that in terms of the IMFL brands that are currently in India. These are two sectors that we are currently seeing potential risks. We don't know if there will be any sort of a negative impact so far, because given that FTA, it is a give and take deal, right? If there are certain sectors where there might be risks, there are also potential benefits that Indian manufacturers and Indian companies could have while they venture out to the UK. A very important part of FTAs is also market access, right? Definitely, as part of market access, UK wants to enter India, given the 1.4 billion population that we have, that is very well digitally connected. The Jan Dhan accounts have helped with a lot of financial outreach as well, which will help a lot of these British fintechs that might now want to come in. So these are some potential implications of this free trade agreement.
Right, Rishabh, thank you so much for bringing us those updates. A very crucial update coming in right now between India and the UK. The statement coming in from the Prime Minister highlighting the significance of the India-UK Free Trade Agreement, also known as the FTA, and the Double Contribution Convention in strengthening bilateral ties. We heard my colleague Rishabh Bhatnagar giving us all of the details. But key takeaways from the announcement that you're seeing on your screens right now, announced by the Prime Minister. The FTA aiming to boost trade, investment and job creation. We're also seeing the Double Contribution Convention ensuring efficient social security contributions for both professionals across borders. This is extremely important. And we're also looking at this particular milestone reinforcing the comprehensive strategic partnership between India and the UK. However, as we have been reporting, it is still unclear at the moment whether the treaty that we have actually been talking about, or the treaty that we have actually been reporting about, the bilateral investment treaty, whether that has also been passed. But what we know that the agreement was in 3 parts. It was consisting of the double convention, the bilateral investment treaty and the FTA. 2 of them have been announced. We've not got details on the bilateral investment treaty as yet. We'll continue tracking that story. This will also have implications, like we have been saying, on auto, on defense, on alcoholic beverages. So this is the update that we're getting in at the moment. Big news coming in this evening. Good news coming in this evening. After 3 long years, the Prime Minister taking to social media to announce this important strategic partnership and a finalization of the FTA between India and the UK.